Welcome to Industrial Marketing Live. I'm Erin Burrish, a senior strategist at the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76, and I'm one of your IML hosts. And today we're talking about the big LP, landing pages. Our thinking on how to structure and write landing pages has changed a little bit over the past year, and we wanted to talk about it. It's a journey, it's an evolution. So we're joined by some of the G76 writers today. We got Mary Tomlinson and Nihal Shetty in the house. Do you guys want to say hi real quickly? I know you're familiar faces, but for those who might be new.
Definitely. Good morning. Hi, I'm Mary Tomlinson, and I'm a senior writer here at Gorilla. Been here about a total of 4 years, so excited to chat LPs with y'all.
Hey everyone, I'm Nihal and I am a writer here at Gorilla. I'm also the co-host of The Manufacturing Marketer with Erin, so listen in if you aren't already.
Yeah, Nihal's been a new voice there. It's been a lot of fun. If you catch us on the podcast, you'll recognize him. But today we are talking about their landing page expertise, and we mentioned that our thinking on landing pages has changed a little bit over the last year or so. So, Mary, Nihal, tell us a little bit about the way we used to think about landing pages. Like, is that still a good way to approach landing pages? Like, what's kind of was the previous state?
Totally. Yeah, I can start there. Yeah, I want to say that nothing that we have learned over the past year has negated any of that foundational learning, but so much of LPs, it used to be that kind of that old inbound model. So more so trust building, a little bit less aggressive. And it was really just more of an act of putting thought leadership out there. That's kind of where the LP started in its evolution. Nihal, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that there were a few changes here, right? So like Mary was saying, it was before we were doing this kind of inbound thing. LPs were basically kind of just a prettier version of a thought leadership article in a lot of ways. I mean, they were a little bit more focused on differentiators in some sense. But we were really focusing with these LPs on, making them short, making them, get them to convert, get them to fill out a form. We were focusing on like a lot of visual interest, right? So like the LP was a primarily, honestly, a visual form, right? We had these beautiful photos, we had a little bit of text. It was very important not to use too much text because like that was really key here. And now I think for a number of reasons that I think we're going to get into, um, we've kind of moved away from that. We're not afraid of longer LPs. We're not afraid of really text-heavy LPs. Um, and I think that direction was something that, within the content team at Gorilla that, there were mixed feelings. I think I was definitely like the most conservative. I was like, no, we should have changed things. Like, I love our original little Z pattern format, photo, text, photo, text, photo, text. Um, but I think there are some real interesting things that you can do with an LP when you're not afraid of saying more and you're not afraid of like losing your audience's attention if that text is directed in the right way, if it's written in the right way, and you gain more conversions that way anyway. So yeah.
Awesome. So we've seen some comments in the chat about, aggressive LPs. Like, what does it kind of mean to put your landing page on the offensive? I guess like how aggressive are we talking here?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I would say it's pretty aggressive. Like, I think that a lot of the things that we're writing for these landing pages now, and I mean, we'll pull some up later, I think, but these are things that I felt frankly kind of embarrassed to write, right? Like, I did not get into B2B marketing because I wanted to be a salesman, right? I want to talk to you about the intricacies of how beautiful this technical product is. I want to be very sympathetic towards your pain points. And now we're really leaning towards like, um, it's a little bit it can feel a little manipulative, right? And again, that's never the goal, is to be manipulative or do anything unethical. But yeah, I do think that we are leaning towards aggressiveness. I don't know if Mary, if you have any thoughts about that, but
Yeah, and aggressive, that sounds like we're being evil and diabolical on our LPs, but aggressive within they have their attention, we have their attention while they're there. One of the changes we've made is like, okay, having just a slider of quotes, changing it to a wall of quotes, you know, while you have their attention there, let's put it on the offensive and show them that information that they want. So yeah, it's kind of I see it as like a 1.0 versus 2.0. So just leveling up while you've got their attention on the page.
Yeah, and I think the other piece that I'd add here is, you know, what you said earlier, Mary, as you mentioned, kind of like that inbound tactics too. Like landing pages used to be a little bit more just like focused on, like we weren't, especially in the industrial space, and I think this is still pretty new for the industrial space if you're doing it. We weren't distributing as heavily with like targeted audiences. It was all SEO focused, like, do we have the right keywords in place, and are folks just like stumbling into our content sort of thing, or are you maybe distributing it via like email? And so yeah, it was more of like that inbound approach, where now as Aaron said, like the word like offensive, it's like, well, we're doing demand generation, so like the content that we're creating has to like go with that. And so if you're trying to generate demand, you're participating in more of like the sales journey, like their buyer's journey. And so you need content that is going to speak to them at every stage of that journey. And some of that means that they're in buy mode and they're ready to buy. So you can be more aggressive and have those firmer CTAs like we talked about in a previous IML episode, without like turning people off. You know, it's just we're using these pieces of content in new ways. So writing them from a different angle makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Clint had a really good question about that. He said, asking for a friend. What are situations when a landing page is better than a home page or product page? Is it only when running ads? So I guess like what's kind of the context here? Like when should you be using a landing page versus other pages on your website?
Great question. Great question. Obviously, the ad landing page is a primary use for it. But any other time you need like a specific place for someone to land outside of your website, is how I think about it. Yeah.
Mhm.
I know as a strategist, like when I want to use a landing page versus a product page, like a lot of times when you're starting out, like you want to launch ads, you're ready to go, hit the ground running. Like a lot of times launching with your homepage or your product page is perfectly fine. I think what differentiates a landing page, and the reason why I like eventually running campaigns to a landing page versus a homepage, for example, is a landing page just has more opportunity and clear path to conversion. And so it kind of is laid out so that it kind of it makes you want to keep reading. It's visually, it's not just a wall of text, it's kind of laid out in a compelling way. And Peyton actually got targeted with an ad for a landing page that was really long. I don't know if Peyton, you want to pull that up and kind of explain the effect it had on you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that I thought was a really interesting example because it's such a long landing page, and you said you read like pretty much to the bottom. And I think that's something that's hard to do with like a wall of text or like a standard product page, which is probably going to be more short and to the point, and it maybe doesn't have that RFQ form on it. So that's how I kind of think about the difference there.
Yeah, I'll post this in the chat too, but I don't know if anyone I moved recently, and so I I still don't understand fully how we get targeted for ads, and I create a lot of custom audiences. But I moved recently, and because of that, we've been thinking about what we're gonna do with our grass. And anyway, there's this company called Sunday, and I've been getting targeted for all different sorts of lawn care, direct mail, whatever, everything. I got targeted on Instagram. I opened this, the mobile, like it was, the mobile landing page was great, but right at the top, they already have just like quick form that you can jump down. Been here before, skip to your results. This is literally something I've used on a manufacturing landing page that I've written for a client. It's like, hey, get to what you want. Like this is, you know, really, really nice. Not a fan of pop-ups, but hey, folks do those. The social proof right here at the top. This is something that we'd call like a whale quote, you know, like it's pulled out larger text so you can see it. And right away, they just start drilling down. So how does it work? Better ingredients, better support, better results, you know, more information, more information, more information. And then a Z pattern. These are all just like, if you listen to any conversations that we've had with Randall, our creative director, these are all just basic design tactics, you know, to help someone flow through a page. And they're using it here on this page. It just really, really well. So easy for your eye to jump from side to side. On mobile, you know, it stacks really nicely. But yeah, they've got a video that they've pulled in here. So giving you all different kinds of ways that you could engage with it. And I mean, I'm just still scrolling. There's still more, but it's like they're diving deeper into like, okay, why is this important? Look, there's pictures of kids. Maybe it's because I'm 8 months pregnant. It's because I have a baby registry. Like, is that why I'm getting this ad? Is this landing page different than what someone else would get? I don't know, but it seems really relevant to me. And I just keep on reading. I'm like, oh man, I would love to have little kids running in the grass. And, you know, I'm just like continuing to go through. They've got their products. These are all click-throughs, so you can continue to learn. Getting into more of like the technical aspects. Like if you're still on this page at this point, how can we push you over the edge to say, this is really like, you have so many options with lawn care, but this one is better because, and yeah, they're doing that here. You can just see how they're moving you through the funnel if you've made it this far. And then they do this really great thing. You know, this is more of a direct to consumer brand, but depending on how many reviews you have or customer interviews, customer feedback you have, it's really nice. Maybe I'm going into, I just thought this was such a great landing page. This is probably more than you wanted, Erin, but like, I just really loved this. And it actually models like a lot of what we like to do here at Gorilla. So yeah, it's a cool landing page for sure. Interested to hear if anyone else had thoughts about it or other things you'd like. I haven't seen the chat, so.
No, there's lots of questions and comments in there. There was some good questions from Jacob about how the content on your landing page like connects to the ads that you're running. And if people are testing out like multiple different variations for different ads. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes. My thought is like, yes, do that. If you have the capacity to do it and you're able to, and you don't have to like go completely wild. But like if you do have different audiences that you're targeting with the same sort of like story, but the audience is a little bit different. Like for one example, I don't know if Luke is on the call today, but you know, he works in field machining, and they have field techs in certain industries that go out with these big machines, this big equipment, and then in other industries they call them machinists. So like depending on who you're talking to, it might make sense for that first headline to say like, hey, field techs, or hey, field machinists. And if you're targeting based on industry, it's really easy to say, oh, I'm just going to duplicate this landing page, change that one word. And the rest of it can be pretty similar. Or if you're targeting based on something that's a little bit more emotionally driven, like I talked about, like the kids in the grass, but you know that your audience targeting is on point, then yeah, maybe you switch the images. Like, hey, you're selling a generator or a marine engine, for example, and you're selling that to a barge company versus a pleasure craft company. Which image do you want to have on your page? And so like those are like simple changes that you could make based on just like understanding the audience that you're going after, for sure.
Yeah, and to answer your follow-up, Jacob, I don't know if we have specific data about the importance of continuity between ad copy and design and LP copy and design. I would say, like, when it comes to paid search specifically, we just see through like correlation, that message matching the landing page headlines to your ad copy headlines, that is where I see like the strongest impact with it. I think on paid social, I try and get more mileage out of my landing pages. So I'm not creating a brand new landing page for every new campaign. I'm thinking about like, okay, I have this brand lander that's a good general introduction to who we help and how we help them. And it hits on kind of the high points for somebody that's maybe just finding out about us. I think about like what types of campaigns that's going to be useful in. And it could be like several different types of campaigns, like brand campaigns, general like brand awareness campaigns. So that's kind of how I think about it. I don't do a lot of aggressive message matching. Well, I do message matching and paid search. I don't do aggressive like landing page to campaign matching in paid social.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Mary even mentioned that too, the point earlier of just like that I was saying about like, if you, it's great if you have the bandwidth to do it, but the fact that you're even creating a landing page at all is probably putting you way ahead of a lot of folks who are just sending people to like a homepage. So like, I guess take it in baby steps. Like anything that you're launching, you can improve it. So if you just take that stance of like, okay, I'm going to start here. So maybe you start with just a campaign that goes to your homepage. And then you're like, all right, folks are engaging with my content in the feed. It would be really great if I could tell them more about like they're clicking on these ads about this pain point. What if I wrote a landing page that was specifically to that pain point, and that was the link that they click through when they decide to click that ad. And then you follow this like kind of process of drilling down from there based on what's relevant. So yeah, that's where I would just like start and then build on it from there.
Yeah, because we were talking about, landing pages kind of being in an evolutionary state. And we talked about like what it means to put your landing page on the offensive. Like Mary, Nihal, what are some of the other things like in terms of specific elements on the landing page or copy choices that you think are different in your way of thinking now?
Yeah, so there's a few of these. I would say that, for example, like I know Peyton pulled up on that LP, she pulled up like the social proof, right? These little reviews from people. Before, something that we used to do on landing pages was we would have carousels, right? We didn't want to make this landing page too long. We would just, you just click through, right? We want to make sure everything was tight and neat and all these things. And now instead, what we do instead is, if possible, and with a lot of manufacturing clients, it's not always easy to get social proof, like it might be for B2C. But like we love to have what we call like a whale quote, right? So like a huge, gorgeous 4 or 5 sentence quote that is just so like, wow, this customer truly understands our brand, understands what makes us special. This is fantastic. And then follow that up with like school quotes, right? So basically these smaller, little, tinier quotes, right? I mean, out of all the landing pages I've written, like the most I've been able to get really just because of, the way how much customer research we've been able to do has just been like 6 school quotes and like one big whale quote. But if you can go and do like 30 school quotes, I mean, just do it, right? You can even add like a little show more thing. People just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And at a certain point, like, when it comes to like building trust, it is okay to like go overboard. It is okay if someone doesn't read every single piece of school quote here, right? So that's one thing, right? Is like not being afraid to just be like, you want social proof? Like we have tons of social proof, right? Because that is something that a lot of people are looking for. In terms of like copy choices, the landing page that we're trying to aim to do is we're doing things like called fascinations now. I don't know if Mary, if you want to talk a little bit about what those are. I was really resistant to these, but I kind of enjoy writing them now. Mary, what do you think?
Yeah, I can talk about fascinations. So fascinations are what are fascinations? It's a way for you to, similarly with the school quotes, just put out there all those advantages and unique features of your product. And we encourage you to write more fascinations than you need. Going back to that, what I put in the chat, LISH or length is strength heuristic. So even if someone doesn't read every single product benefit, they are able to see a wall of information staring back at them that says, wow, like there's something there that is speaking to me. So yeah, a fascination, we break it down as just thinking of it as intrigue, curiosity, desire. So kind of like writing a clickbaity headline is the most simple way I can think of putting it, but yeah, does that definition make sense, Peyton?
Yeah, I think so. This is something that, like, when I saw it, whenever the writers here at Gorilla came to me and they were like, hey, we want to change how you're doing landing pages and we want to do these fascinations. It reminded me of classifieds. Like just these little tiny like text, like a classified page in the newspaper. And so I see it as like taking a page from the print advertising book. And I think it would probably be something that like Claude Hopkins would be like, I don't know, ringing the bell from his grave of like, yay, you guys are doing good advertising these days. But I'll share a quick screen here just so you guys can kind of see what we're talking about. But so this is a whole like a wireframe, but what this could look like, and this is a screenshot, but it's truly just like little blurbs of text. And then each one of them has a link that drops down to either a form or like a place to learn more. In like the case here, most of these would just drop down to like the form. So it's just giving you more and more reasons, incentive, like Mary said, to move down. And I don't think I've had any landing pages that we've written so far that have used quite as many as what you're seeing here. But if you do have enough like reasons to give people to fill out the form, I agree with Nihal, like go ahead and just like put it out there, have a see more option. But also like having it all just front and center like this, it reduces the clicks, so it's reducing the friction, and just giving people more right in front of their face to simmer on as they're thinking about moving forward with you or not.
Yeah, and I would just add to that that I think what makes these fascinations distinct isn't necessarily like normally when we're doing like a Z pattern, for example, and I think this is another transformation here, but not transformation, like another evolution here, which is that with a Z pattern, each of these different blurbs that we're doing is hitting on a different differentiator. What the fascinations are doing is that each of the fascinations, it's not so much a different positioning differentiator, so much it is like a different style of copy, a different like tactic in terms of writing, right? So like yeah, I mean I threw in chat like three of these. What I did for a certain client was I wrote like 20 of these fascinations and I used different copy tactics in each of them, right? Like different, I mean, it feels like a little bit like paint by the numbers, which can be a little humiliating as a writer, but like you do it anyway. And you just kind of paint by the numbers, write 20 different styles of copy, 20 different like, you know, like maybe you want to say like, what are you missing out on? Or you want to say something like um warning. So this is one like this is an embarrassing one that I wrote like warning, not every systems integrator is looking out for your best interest. That can lead to disaster. Find out why so many organizations know they can trust this client, right? Like that is a super humiliating thing to write. Like a warning. I mean, like who am I? Like that is so cheesy, right? But you do it anyway, and you write 20 of these, and then you try out different things, and then you pick the ones that are least embarrassing, the ones that are kind of interesting, and you just throw them on there. The point about this kind of, and I think this is why I've started to enjoy this kind of style of landing page more, is that it encourages experimentation. It encourages changing up how you're doing things. Like maybe one style of fascination doesn't appeal to your audience, but another will, right? And so it's not so much, I think in marketing, we tend to be like, oh, positioning is the basics for everything we're doing. And that is true. But positioning isn't the only way to, content isn't just like an organic evolution from positioning. Content is positioning plus craft, plus style, plus experimentation, plus all these things. Um, so yeah, I think that was kind of, I'll hop on my soapbox for a second, but
Well, speaking of the experimentation, Jared had a question in the chat too, about, you know, just what our thoughts are on templates and layout for landing pages. Jared, you're welcome to unmute, and I know you said that you've got spring breakers with you, so
It's a wild spring break over here. No, I was just curious, like for like a singular company, as you get more and more landing pages that you're building out for different verticals or products, if it's best to just kind of use the same template design layout and just kind of place in the pertinent information, pictures and whatnot, or if it's best to, based on the industry you're targeting, to build something custom around that.
Yeah, Jared, we are not afraid of templates for things like these where we know the goal is conversion. So the template is a way for I'm not afraid of using them, and I think it's a great way to channel your thinking into a format that works. But the great thing about these LPs, you know, there is some modularity to it. You know, if you have a lot of video assets that you want to incorporate, don't let the template stop you from doing that. I, you know, work with the rules until you need to break them is my purview. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I would just, we definitely, when we develop these in-house, we do make them modular. So like you might not have a bunch of customer quotes, or you might just say, this is fascinations, this whole thing, I just don't want to mess with that. You know, or maybe you need 5 Z patterns that go across, you know, or maybe you just need one. So you can kind of like add or subtract, but building out the template in a way, the reason why I like templates is because it will protect the layout of the page and the structure of the page so that it's going to work well on mobile or desktop. If you're going to be designing like a new landing page from scratch every single time, you're just going to have to make sure that, okay, it's still going to work really well on mobile and desktop, because we work in this really awesome industry where I think it's a pretty even split as far as folks are on their phones because we're using social media to target them. So folks are scrolling through Facebook or LinkedIn on their device because they're out at trade shows or whatever, and they click through their phone to the mobile version of your landing page. So you're getting a lot of traffic that way. But then also people are doing a ton of research on their laptops or their desktop device at the office, because that's just part of our jobs in this industry, right? So you still need to make sure you're balancing those two things. If you have like the one template that you've built and then you can turn things on or off, you're just kind of protecting yourself in that way and maybe taking a little bit off your plate when you're trying to rebuild it. But I definitely have multiple templates for some of my clients based on like what we're using the page for. Like if it's a white paper download versus a more like aggressive landing page, like what we're talking about here, different styles. Aaron, I'd be curious if for your take on that too.
No, yeah, I think modular is great. I think also if you feel like you have to create something custom every time, one, that's a ton of work. That sounds awful. And two, I think you risk like inconsistency in your brand too. Like you might need maybe you have like 2 standard like types of landing pages, but they still feel cohesive together. Like one is designed to like show off a product better, and one is designed for this longer form, like more dense in information. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, if I don't have a good quote for this specific product line, then I just, remove that section. Or if I don't have as many good quotes, maybe I just have one whale quote and I don't have the little school underneath or something like that. So giving yourself flexibility so you don't have to start from scratch every time is
Okay.
the best.
Sorry, but like I just put this together of why they're called school quotes, because it's like watery, like, right? So it's like a whale, and then you have like a school of fish. Is that why they're called school quotes? Okay.
That's hilarious.
So clever.
So
I just said that right away. We're just throwing out jargon left and right.
yeah. Oh, writers. Mary, what are your tactical tips for writing landing pages?
Yes, tactical tips for writing landing pages. I think, we talked about a lot of in the weeds tips and everything for design, but kind of pulling it back, the focus of a landing page, it's to be concise, clear, focus very specifically to the audience, and to answer the so what question. So make sure we've talked about a lot of tactics, but it's all channeling down into one single goal to get them to convert, to get them to fill out a form and become a conversion for you. So keeping that singular goal in mind, I think, is important. That maintaining that focus.
Totally. Yeah, and I guess like just in terms of the pure writing level, right? Like I think a good landing page, it uses a lot of imperatives, right? You're saying things like stop doing this, start doing this, right? That is kind of the message of the landing page. Stop doing this, start doing this. And you should say that explicitly. I think that, this thing that Alan is always drilling into us, Alan, who's here a lot and who is kind of our conversion guru, like he's always just like, you need to put the you at the beginning of the sentence, right? Like, don't say XYZ benefit, that means you do this, right? It means you gain this because of XYZ, right? Just these are very small little copy things that it can feel a little bit rigid, but like once you realize that like you are really aiming to tell the reader what to do in some way, and you kind of need to lean into it a little bit. And I guess that kind of goes back to the aggressiveness of this kind of style of writing, right? Uh, for example, like I think the way we're doing landing pages now, for example, we're much more interested in the hero. So like the header, basically the top of the page, right? We are, it opens with a big, beautiful promise. It has some subheader, which is kind of an expansion of that project of that promise, and then it has some body text too. Like this is a paragraph, right? Before we were kind of afraid of doing a header that was too long because you were like, oh, well, we got to get these readers to scroll down a little bit to hear all the things that make us great, as opposed to, again, like give them all the information they need, tell them what to do up front. People respond to that kind of commandeering tone, right? And you want your brand to be both comforting and thoughtful and intellectual, but at the same time, like a bit authoritative, right? So I think carrying that style into the writing is extremely important. And I would say that that is like the writing. I mean, it's hard to describe writing in general, right? Everyone wants writing that's judicious and intelligent and all these things. That's like everyone's brand guidelines. They don't really mean anything really because everyone wants that. But I think like in terms of the actual craft, more imperatives, short sentences, put the you up front. These are things that I think are useful in a landing page specifically for really getting that achieving the function of the landing page.
That's awesome. We had another question in the chat that I wanted to get to from Emily, asking us about if we've ever had the landing page link to the homepage. She says, if someone were to visit the landing page from an ad and then wants to revisit later, but go through the homepage, how visible is that? I ask because we currently have a landing page that is hard to find outside of an ad, which is not my first pick. So curious what others think about that. I have some thoughts, but anyone else want to jump in first?
I don't have thoughts on this. So Peyton, you can go ahead.
All right. Well, so if your page does not link back to your website, what you're creating is a squeeze page, right? So it's like they don't have any pathways to go to. You're like you're creating like a dead end situation with the only option for them if they wanted to like move forward with you is that form fill. This could be good for something like a webinar that you're hosting, you know, or something like that. But I think in most cases, especially that we're running like demand gen efforts, you're okay with like multiple outcomes. And I think an outcome there of them coming to your homepage, which then if you're running paid social, they're going to visit your website. So they're going to be then pulled into your retargeting audience, where you can then nurture them a little extra, is a perfectly fine outcome. Because demand generation, the goal is not always to just get that form fill on the first click. The goal is that they're reading more about you, that they're getting more familiar with your brand, that you're building credibility with them over time. So what I like to do on landing pages is like anywhere that your logo is, I think that should still be linked back to like the homepage of your website, like would be expected on a normal piece of web content.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh.
sorry. I was just gonna say, I read that question a little differently, like the reverse. Like, do you ever link to your landing pages on the homepage, or like if somebody wanted to come back to it, revisit it? I don't know, Emily, like, do you want to come on and maybe like clarify your question? But I do agree with what everything that Peyton said about squeeze pages.
Yeah, so this particular one, we aren't actually gathering information. It's about like a campaign that is a year long. And so my first choice would have been to, you have the landing page from an ad that we're running, and it is very hidden on our homepage. But I personally would have, because people are going to revisit it and kind of track progress with us throughout the year, that I would have wanted it maybe to be a little bit more visible. So I was just curious about how frequently that happens. I know that's not like the standard case for it, and you're typically wanting to gather information. This is more like a tracking throughout the year for us. So I was just curious about what other people have used or thought in the past for other things.
Yeah, I think if that's the case, like that, the function of that landing page is pretty different than like a typical landing page. Like most landing pages that I'm creating to use in campaigns or like paid search or anything like that, I'm excluding from search on my website. It's not something I really want people to stumble upon organically, like outside of that, demand generation path that I want to put them on. But I think for something like that, like what you're describing is almost like a resource on your website that is kind of just in this landing page format. And I think what you're describing, if it's something that people are going to want to revisit, I think I probably would want to make it more visible, but maybe use different like tracking URLs. So when it's coming from a campaign, I could differentiate that from somebody like finding it organically. I don't know. I've never really encountered something like that. Peyton, Nihal, Mary, like, what do you think there?
In that case, now that I'm understanding your question correctly, Emily, yeah, I think that Erin described it as a resource, and I think like if you can make it live in a resource center in some way, that would be really, really good. The other thing I would take a look at is, okay, you've got it interlinked on your homepage. Are there other places on your website where it should be interlinked so that it's easier for people to find it? This is something that Nihal and I were just discussing for another client too, where we're just like, okay, so we have this landing page content that isn't accessible unless you have the direct link. But wouldn't it be nice if you were reading this article and we reference this term, and if you're feeling curious, feeling like you want to explore, you could click through and then learn a little bit more. So we've just kind of done an audit, and kind of we do this with every piece of content that we write and post on a client's website. Is okay, what like where could this get embedded throughout the website to kind of be part of the ecosystem. So I think like what your gut is telling you, Emily, is like spot on. You're like, okay, this page is being useful. Folks like it. How can we make it like show up where it would help them progress? And so looking for more opportunities apart from just the homepage. If you can't fit it into like a resource center or something like that, that would make it a little bit easier to find too, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I would just maybe add here, I don't know if this is immediately relevant to you, Emily, but I feel like we should open the door here and say that there's many different kinds of landing pages that are covering many different things, right? There are some like very eccentric landing pages. Like I'm in Portland right now, like that is not my beautiful headboard, but I'm here because I'm visiting a client who has a very gorgeous and clean facility. And that is something that a lot of people have talked about in customer research. Like they're like, we walked through this facility and like this is gorgeous and super, bright and lovely and organized. So what we did for this client a few months ago is we wrote like a facility tour landing page. Like we wrote a landing page that just takes people through the facility. It's like that is a more visual piece. It is, kind of a photographic tour. And we linked that to like their About Us section. We put it on various parts of the website to be like, well, like the content of this landing page naturally fits into this existing thing, this About Us section on your website, right? So I think like if depending on the contents of the landing page, like if there's a place that it feels appropriate to slot it in elsewhere on your site, I would say like go for it. I mean, it's a great piece of content then. So
And Emily, I think that's a great example of, these are to serve the audience, these are to serve our potential customers. So like thinking about in their position, good marketing is about being empathetic and what information will be helpful to them and how can I make it easy. So I think, yeah, your head's in the right spot.
Awesome. Well, time has just flown. It's already 10:46 here. I guess I'll ask real quick, Mary, Nihal, any like parting thoughts or like big takeaways or pieces of advice for anyone that's maybe starting on their first landing page?
yeah, I guess my piece of advice would be to have fun with it. I think landing pages can be one of the most fun things to write because again, they encourage experimentation in a lot of ways. Yeah, this is not a great piece of strategic or tactical advice, but I do think that you can really play around with it and try different things. And yeah, and of course, we're always happy to talk about what those different things might look like. So.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Nihal.
Yeah, I think the big thing I'd add here at the outset is just start somewhere, even if it's your homepage. Install like a heat map or like a screen recording software on your website if you don't already. A while ago, we were talking about different ones. One that we really like right now is called Clarity by Microsoft, and it's free. It's really nice. It's got like AI built in. Aaron actually found that tool for us, and we've been playing with it. So install Clarity on like your site, and then learn and try different things. I think some folks have said in the chat that their audience is engaging really well with short copy. Run with that. Others, they want more detail, so longer copy, but you can see what they really are doing on your page if you get that heat map software, or you're tracking like scroll depth for different things. So yeah, that would be the one bit of like tactical that I would add.
Yeah, it feels like there's not really a right or wrong way to do a landing page. It's all about like being clear on your objective, listening to best practices that are out there, and kind of viewing it as like a menu of, components you can put together. And I like that it evolves and it changes as, customer behavior changes. But I think that's all we have for today. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you aren't already in Slack with us and you want to join that channel, just drop it in the chat now, or you can direct message any gorilla anytime. We'll get you added. That's where we kind of keep the conversation going. People ask questions, have really good discussions there. And then our next IML is April 4th. And we are hosting who we would lovingly call the grandfather of this show, Julian Schaaf. He's an industrial marketer through and through, and over the past several years has spent his time supporting industrial startups. He's also a former gorilla. He started Industrial Marketing Live, which is why we call him the grandfather. But we all know industrial companies have their own unique quirks, and startups definitely do too. So he's going to talk about kind of what's working in the industrial startup world and how we might apply it. So join us in April, and Julian will unpack kind of those biggest lessons that he's learned that you can apply to your programs.
Awesome. So good to see everyone today.
Thank you all.
Bye.